All right, everybody. I'll give people a few seconds to be able to join into the stream there. But as
Happening.
yeah, as people out there probably already know, if you were watching the 420 news there just a few minutes ago, I announced that I'll be going live with my buddy Graham DeBarra, who is over in Portugal at the moment, situated in his art gallery, Casa, the Drogas. So Graham, welcome along. One sec.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, yeah, no bother at all. If you want to give
You're a
people,
legend for keeping me on here. I know you had just a 420 news show. I know you have this show as well. It's like a day, but on Bicycle Day, it kind of marks a nice anniversary. It's 50 years since 1971's Richard Nixon introduced the so-called rhetorical war on drugs, and we're no closer to that end. But nonetheless, we need to find ways in which we can kind of outlet our frustration. And that's kind of really what I would describe this art gallery and exhibition as. And I came up with the idea like a year ago. We were in Lisbon, as you do, just in regular kind of holiday. We were here just before lockdown in the beginning of March, and we were walking up the Castelo de São Jorge. I don't know if you've been to Lisbon, you have, but I
I
don't know,
have
did you do the Castelo? I hadn't done it
no.
until then. And I didn't even do it then because they wanted 20 € to get in. So we just walked around it. We didn't even bother. But there was a guy painting, and I thought it was very peculiar, and he was using coffee. So I understand, okay, coffee is like a big tradition here. It seems like there might have been some colonial kind of war going on, and they took coffee from Middle East or something like that. So it wasn't really a drug that I wanted to use in my own means of expression, but I immediately thought of street heroin as a medium for expressing and doing kind of different paintings. I mostly work with ink, and I have done since I've been a child. So I kind of wanted to get back into just a place of peace, and that's what I describe me doing art
Nice.
is just a place. It's a thing that I enjoy doing. And I kind of sat. I remember texting you immediately and being like, "Dude, I think I'm going to do this," and I just wanted to get that feedback. I just wanted someone to say, like, either that's stupid or that's actually kind of interesting. Has that been done before? And you said, oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty unique. And so I kind of sat on the idea for a good year, thought about it, how I would execute it, and I would say that kind of the last like 3-4 months on the latter half of the lockdown back in Ireland, it just got to a point where I just had to do something. It was just really enough sitting down looking at the four walls in my apartment. So we kind of looked at the situation in Portugal. We found that they were actually reopening. They had a protest here back in like March, and the government immediately said, okay, we're going to come up with a strategy. And they came up with a strategy, and it's a 3-phase approach. So we're on phase 3 of opening, which means indoor dining, events, and a host of other things, hairdressers, etc., indoor shopping. All that's been opened as of today. And I thought,
Nice.
how fitting, 19th of April, Bicycle Day, tomorrow's 420. I had no plans yet for Bicycle Day or 420, and I had this idea for the last year. So we got on a plane, we came out here on the start of April, the 1st of April, just before the Easter weekend. And immediately, well, I would say it was very quiet at the start. I would say maybe, people are like Irish people here. They spent Easter with their family. There was
Mhm.
no one really on the street. It was very quiet, like too quiet, like it was very peaceful. It was nice to walk around, but I thought, okay, there's literally nobody. And I, kept having these doubts in my mind. Is this really the timing? Should I be doing this? But there was only 100 cases of COVID, so I didn't feel like at any point like distracted by this or fearful, that they don't really live like that here. They live outdoor, they live in the sun, and they exercise a lot. So kind of got into it a bit, started doing outdoor dining, started enjoying ourselves. And it wasn't long before, I think it was the Monday or Tuesday, I think it was the Tuesday after Easter, and all of a sudden the kind of gang kind of took over the inner square and inner city. And immediately then, being kind of a stand-out pasty white man, I walked down the street here in Praça Comercio, some of the Rua da Prata and some of the shopping areas, and like immediately, people over hashish, cocaine, heroin.
Yeah.
So I kept saying, okay. Tell me, what do you have for sale? This seems to be commonplace. And I kind of talked a bit, interacted a bit, like, where are you from? And the story seemed to be very common. And that story is, it's like a Romanian gypsy gang from Spain. They kind of travel around a bit. I think like south of Spain in particular, one particular region, and they travel across when the opportunity is right. The opportunity was not right on Easter Friday, Easter Saturday, and Easter Sunday because, well, there was no tourists here and everybody was at home. But the moment that the second phase of lockdown, the week after, and everything reopened, I mean, the streets were just full of, I mean, kind of counterfeit drugs. That's what I'd explain it to be. I mean, anyone who's ever consumed cannabis can tell that it more resembles like hops or something, and the hash, it's very grainy, quite squishy.
Yeah.
But not in a good way, not a good kind of squishy,
No.
like very, very yellow, way too yellow. So I thought, okay, I'm into Bitcoin. It's one of the things that I do, and I thought, okay, I'll make some hash Bitcoins, and I'll kind of do something with I'll do something with the different substances. I asked for heroin. Like I said, oh, that's coming next week, when the tourists back. Okay, fine. When the heroin's here, I'll be out on the streets. And if you guys approach me, I'm going to talk to you. And again, I'm just talking here, and people come straight over.
Well, that was my experience now as well. I went to the Plaza de Comercial down by the water side, and within a second of entering the square, I could see your man making a beeline for me from the fountain at the centre of the square. There was about 6 or 7 of them hanging around there at the centre of the square, and he just made a beeline straight for me, like didn't miss a beat at all, straight over, and he just like, hashish, cocaine, and I was just like, oh yeah, you got a bit of hash, like. And that's when I got caught with that bit of hash. Then the first time, it looked fucking good. It looked legit. I should have really tested it. I didn't realize there was such a problem there with scamming myself. I was naive.
You got that on video?
No, I didn't.
You did an episode afterwards?
I did afterwards. Yeah, I didn't realize I was going to get scammed. I would have been so forthcoming with my money, even though I didn't get ripped off for too much. But still,
that's the kind of that's the thing to consider, like when he came over with the hash that day, he said, oh, €70 for, I don't know, was it like a little bar of hash? I mean, it could have been, I didn't even weigh it. It could have been 5 grams. It could have been 10 grams. I don't know really.
Yeah, it looked like it was the same shape as what I was offered, kind of like a little skinny, very slender, long egg kind of shape, wide at the it's kind of suggested.
Yeah, exactly.
It's suggestive of where it might have been put or smuggled, it's in that kind of a size. That's kind of what I looked at it. It's like a suppository, that's what it kind of makes you think of, like. But
I mean, it's brown, so it may be. It very well might be, and I definitely do not recommend anybody to ever put any of these things into their body, because from an unknown source, you really don't know.
Yeah.
I tried to look into getting a test, like not just the hashish, but eventually the heroin started coming back on the streets. So when I came out there, like maybe a week and 2 weeks ago, maybe, the guy came up. I said, okay, heroin. This was like 9 o'clock in the morning. I was going to the shop to get breakfast, just to get some groceries. And I said, okay, do you have it? He said, yes. 1 minute, give you 4 grams for €350. And I'm like, no, because I know that I just listened to Howard Marks's drug stories from a dope fiend, and he said back in the 60s, a gram of heroin was 20 pounds. And so I thought, an adjustment for inflation, maybe I'd expect to pay 20, and it's fake probably, so I'd expect no more than €20. So I say €10, and I don't want 4 grams, because I know the legal limit for personal possession in Portugal is, I think it's half a gram. So I wanted to make sure that I was, I wanted to make sure that I was under the legal limit. I didn't want any trouble. And
is half a gram of heroin 10-day supply?
I think it's either half a gram or a gram. I'm going to say half a gram. I was kind of erring on the side of caution. I said, just in case, I'm going to go for the half a gram, 10-day supply. And I didn't even have change for the €20, but I didn't want to give him €20. I'm going to get scammed. I don't want to fuel any sort of like drug thing. But then again, I have been trying to support the local economy. I'm buying a cup of coffee and tipping. And so I thought at the end of the day, I offered him €10. and we kind of met in the middle. So I paid him €15, but I made sure to get change in the shop first, and bought some
Right
vitamin
job.
D to get some change back. And so, making sure that I'm balancing out the immunity.
So
So
you managed to get
I took
some.
it.
You managed to get some heroin and hash so far over there. So, and anything else?
Yeah, so kind of the big thing that's pushed is cocaine. There's kind of touristy scene here. So at the moment UK flights aren't allowed in, so there's not that
Yeah.
many kind of white people. But I have heard of more American accents. I think they allowed the flights there the other day. So they kind of target this kind of group of people they assume are going to be going to the pubs. And
Yeah.
literally, we don't hang out in pubs much, like at all. We don't drink. I haven't drank at all since being here. But I noticed that they're in cahoots with the bar owners and with the restaurant owners. So it's outdoor dining, and they go right up to the people sitting
Yeah.
down as well. And that's something that really doesn't happen in Ireland. Like if anybody tries to come into a bar and do anything, now it does kind of happen maybe on the sly. You never really know, but definitely not in the way in which, I mean, a bar owner would just kick someone out if they saw anything
Yeah.
like that.
But it's
But
different
it's
over
kind of
there, I
tolerated here.
suppose, because of the guys. Like when I was over there now, I witnessed guys going around with like fucking little souvenirs, and they were trying to sell them to people sitting down at the restaurant tables. But I also know that those same guys with the souvenirs were trying to offer me cocaine and hashes. I was walking past them a
Yes.
few minutes ago. So he's going in with his little squeaky fucking rabbit or frog or whatever it might have been trying to sell it, and then he's like, hashish, cocaine,
Sardine.
yeah, party.
Yeah. So I would say so I left the heroin in the bag for I think like a week and a half. I didn't know what to do with it. Like I went like straight home, like put it up into the cupboard, like made sure the cleaning lady wouldn't find it or anything like that. And it was about a week and a half later, I thought, you know what? I'm in a creative buzz here now. I'm going to walk up to the Castello, and I'm going to replicate what I witnessed with the coffee last year. I'm going to do it with the heroin. So got my cotton paper, watercolor paper, went out. But when I took the heroin out and I thought I'd mix it with some water, it was so strong. I was like, what's this smell? It's cinnamon. This is not at
Everyone.
all heroin. This is probably 100% cinnamon. Canela, they call it.
Yeah.
Canela. So I was quite disappointed. I thought, damn, I literally paid €15 for half a gram of cinnamon spice that I could have got in the supermarket for like €1.
Yeah.
That's quite disappointing. If I was trying to shoot it into my arm, I wonder what would happen. Maybe the hotel would be finding me the next morning. I don't know really what happens when you put such substances into your body. Because I know heroin, would probably be relatively safe if you knew what you were doing,
Hmm.
compared to putting something that you don't know. You asked what other drugs. There was cocaine I think it was just like a couple of days ago. It was offered since we got here, but it was kind of something, I kind of wasn't sure how I would use white powder in an art form. I was thinking, I could mix it in with water and make a kind of a cocaine paste.
A food dye?
But did you have an idea?
Adding food dye to it, like, or you know that there's cocaine, water, and
Would
food
I?
dye mixed together, like, and
Yeah.
like, you know,
I want to make it as obvious of being cocaine as possible. So I'm going to try and keep it in powder form, and
painting a
I have a
Scarface.
piece that I'm going to make. Yeah, inside like a black sardine, and try and like do the gills and the eyes in white and on a black kind of contrast, black and white contrast. We'll see
Nice.
what happens, But the experience of buying the cocaine was quite straight. It was quite frightening. Like the guy had a knife and was trying to give me a sample with the knife. Was, you try first, and I was like, no, thank you. I
Yeah,
just want half a gram,
you had me at knife,
one
sir.
gram minimum. Well, for my girlfriend, it kind of seemed a little bit odd that there was a man yielding a knife, and then he sniffs it when I don't accept it, and the knife's back out, and he's like, "You're not giving me €20. You're giving me €40." And at that point, I just thought, fine, I want it for my art. You want €40? You just took a line of cocaine and you have a knife in your hand. So I just took the €40 out. I just gave it to him. He'd like just bag it up. It was like dripping powder, like it was just
Oh,
powder everywhere.
stop.
We were in the middle of the street. People were staring. But it was like fine, I'm just have a big smile on my face because I know that what I'm doing with this is just something totally different. And the people
Yeah.
here have not witnessed this, and they know what's going on, and they know what's been going on since 2001 approximately, when they decriminalized all drug possession. It's not to say necessarily that drug decriminalization caused this, because it's hard to kind of tell, because pre-2001 Portugal was a very different place. We don't know what the tourism really looked like. It wasn't really until the 2000s that the kind of boom came here. It became a holiday destination for British, for Irish in particular. But we know since then, at the very least, people are definitely using the ability to possess a small amount of drugs but they're not even real drugs either. So they know that there's nothing illegal what they're possessing, but what they're doing, scamming and conducting fraud, that would be probably very protected in a regulated market, but in an unregulated market, there's still no protections there.
Yeah.
So they run the streets. That's as simple as that. There's a lot of people here, especially since the third phase this morning, walking around trying to get this gallery open. You know, I had some prints to collect and some frames and stuff. And it just became so, like the guy today now is just carrying bricks and he was just flaunting the bricks and we're like, shouting. And there's like children around, there's like tourists, not that many yet, mostly Portuguese working people. So they know what to do. They just speak Portuguese or they don't even approach them.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can definitely see flaws in, you know, what I suppose the response for decriminalization was more to do with the HIV/AIDS problem, and that was there was 300-400 people dying of overdose every year pre-2001. I think the figure was from 1999 was 369, and now they have only 30 people overdosing. So for sure, that has definitely been a huge benefit for outreach workers, for homeless communities. Not being criminalized any longer, for the allowance of drug consumption rooms and mobile consumption rooms, which drive around here with a bunch of nurses and medical professionals. So to do that sort of work, it definitely appears better in a decriminalized model than a criminalized model. That's just as simple as that. People will be more upfront, forthcoming to receiving any sort of services, clean syringes, foil and all different kind of apparatus for consuming different substances. But, you know, this kind of concept here, what I'm trying to do is just to give the idea out to people that regulation and regulación in Portuguese, that is the point. Yeah. Because if a tourist or anybody is so succumbed by the offer and invitation to buy counterfeit substances, you actually have two illegal markets. You have the illegal drug market, and then wrapped inside that, you have a counterfeit market. So it's not even drugs that they're selling. So you have two businesses. Like you have like two ways of making money. Whereas like, I don't know, I guess that's kind of everywhere, unless it's regulated. That's potential. The potential in Ireland is that you get fake drugs too, and it does happen that every middleman who's going to touch that cocaine or that heroin or that cannabis, there's a risk that they're going to be tempted to maximize their profit and yield a higher quantity by weighing down and using different additives to weigh their substances. And that's what you see here. It's 100% counterfeit. I don't think there's any drugs in what I'm doing. So I don't even think it's illegal.
Yeah.
But nonetheless,
you went out intending to set up an illegal drug gallery, and you ended up having what's the hash again? It says fucking a bay leaf extract or something, isn't it? Bay leaf.
Yeah, bay leaf. We use bay leaf for cooking one of the nights here, because like I wanted to know, like, bay leaf, like I know what it is and what it looks like, but I've never cooked with it, and I just wanted to know. So like the little bag of bay leaves, I don't know, maybe 50 grams or something like that cost like a couple of euro.
Yeah.
Like couple of euro was probably more strong than the concentrated hash that was there, because who knows what else is mixed in with that bay leaf. It's probably bay leaf and something else, wax or some sort of binding, I don't know. But there was a police campaign here in 2017, and the posters are still up here around the city, but there's only you have to go looking for them. They're not actually on the streets, but they're more in the kind of where locals hang out. So even though it's in English and Portuguese, it's aimed at tourists. It's an awareness campaign, and the police took to the streets. They held a protest themselves, a few hundred of them, and they had these posters, kind of like the Health Not Harm posters back in 2016. You know, they had these kind of nice colors to them. They had good messaging, and one of them was like, you're trying to buy like cooking spice, like don't waste your money. It's cheaper to go to the supermarket, or like watch out for bay leaves. It's not going to get you high. And they were just at the breaking point where the police can do all they can by driving around and having their sirens going like non-stop. But there's so many people here who are openly dealing on the streets that it's an impossibility. There's no chance. Police don't stand a chance to eradicate this, and then you kind of have to imagine what other problems that they need to face, like real problems that they need to face too. And so they need to decide what's more important: a tourist getting ripped off, or fighting real crime for the locals in which they represent. And you need to remember the salary here for a police officer for the police is €790 per month.
A month, jeez, yeah. How does that compare
It's
to
not much.
Yeah, that's probably about average wage over there, I suppose, is it? Like,
Yeah, like
that's not even as
it's
much as we
about
get on the dole.
650.
I get more on the dole here, actually. Now that I think about it, I get
Yeah,
€200 a week.
you would.
Like, so, wow,
Yeah, and
that's crazy.
there's no COVID payments here, and I don't think there's really much stimulus for businesses. The average rent then in the city centre is €4,000 to rent a little premise. I know that because I've been trying to get one, and it was just too expensive. It was unreal. Like, there was so many businesses closed,
Yeah,
but it's just so expensive.
fact, that's crazy enough.
So yeah, like it's a different world. Poverty is the real issue here. Like, you go outside of the main square, and you walk down to the residential parts, and it's one of the most diverse cities that I've ever been in, which is great because you kind of have a lot of great food. Your food options are amazing. You got like Indian food, you got 8 different types, like Vietnamese food, Thai food, Malaysian food, Chinese food, Japanese food, like in proper, like real traditional. So I like to walk around and just kind of let the kind of melting pot of culture sink in a bit. But you can tell, like, the problem here is poverty, number one, because there's a lot of people living on the streets, like, of all ages, quite old as well. Like, it's a very old population compared to Ireland, and in and around the old city of Lisbon, that's really an old population. So they're hit hard by just general economic
Well,
decisions by the government.
I noticed that too as well when I was over there. The poverty was very much in your face over there. Like, people were like in the main streets. There was a lot of begging going on, and you could definitely notice that side of things. All right, and as well, then you talk about those police having only £800 a week. Like, how easy is that to corrupt these guys? Like, if you're part of one of these Romanian gypsy gangs and you're selling cinnamon for what, half a gram of it for
You'd be surprised.
€15,
It
you make a
doesn't
lot.
happen. It really, the police here are actually some of the most educated, and they apply common sense.
Yeah.
Like, really, any interactions that I've had with them, or that I've seen them, and that I've talked to people, apparently they don't accept bribes from these gangs. They really know, they have a greater understanding. And you have to remember that 2017 awareness campaign was by the police.
Yeah,
It
that's
wasn't the government.
interesting. Yeah.
It wasn't the health officials. It was the police. They came out on the streets. They represent the people, and they came out to warn the people they can't do anything about this. It's not in their hands. It's a executive order. It needs to be done by the parliament. And they fell asleep on the wheel. They're too busy robbing people. And I think now there was a big protest here yesterday. Thousands of people on the street over a judicial decision where the former prime minister was up in court for 21 counts of fraud, and the judge removed 15 counts, and he's only left with 6 counts. And so people went, like old people, they were out here in busloads. Like, they came out busloads of people, and it was like a big thing. And right now, Portugal are the president of the European Parliament. So every year it's a rotation. Ireland were the first year back after the Lisbon Treaty, and now Portugal. And I was reading in an article in the Portuguese news that the same problem. They're actually pulling millions of euro for so-called events and drinks and beverages for 350 people, but there's no events going on here. The city's pretty much like a little bit open, but it's not open for indoor events, definitely not. There's no events happening here. So there's questions now, the media are investigating, and this is kind of like, it kind of coming from Brussels now, it's kind of affecting everyone in Europe. I guess every government takes, money for expenses, but when there's in the middle of COVID and there's literally no expenses because no one's going anywhere, and the amount of money to host an online conference is practically nothing. It's like a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
So they're busy dealing with these problems of corruption, and they're distracted a lot. They're distracted by by these other issues. And I think it takes kind of little acts of artistic expression and conversation with people to try and open this Pandora's box, because they kind of felt there's nothing they can do. Decriminalization did the best it could, and they don't know that there's actually solutions that are being held in other countries and other jurisdictions, including Spain, like 20
only their
minutes across the
neighbours.
border.
Yeah, so much more sensible. Even though I suppose things aren't all sunshine and lollipops over there either, as Albertio kind of alluded to there in his conversation with me recently. I was kind of made aware of how I suppose, yeah, not secure they are over there yet. Like the clubs and associations as we see them as being a great, it certainly is a great model. But if it can be just implemented and respected now by the authorities, but they've gotten away with it for a good while. But it's certainly a good place to be looking for, all right, for inspiration to Spain. But yeah,
I think the Spanish model would do a tremendous benefit for. I'm not even talking about like like tourism. Like Portugal are probably one of the top tourist destinations as it is. But what it would do to collect taxes for the locals and that elderly population who have no money, no stimulus packaging, there's no universal basic income here. The average wage is less than €800 per month for anybody, and the rent is still it's quite expensive. You know, if you're to open a business here, the same startup costs as say Dublin, but the salary is like third world. And so you can understand why some people go into hustling and go into business, into drug trade, because if they have no money and they're in the middle of a pandemic and they need to do something, they're going to sell counterfeit sunglasses, they're going to sell counterfeit anything to these tourists who they perceive have money, but you know, it just perpetuates itself. And I think the cannabis social model that you're alluding to there, that Alberteo, you know, is actively part of. I think that would just do so much good for the Portuguese economy, and it just makes so much sense. I mean, if I can drive 30 minutes to the border and go to a cannabis social club, and everything is normal, and the taxes are collected, and everyone there is employed, why can't the people here enjoy the same rights?
True. Yeah, that's so true. And I did you have that hash Bitcoin on you actually? Is it nearby?
I don't, and you know what? It's back in the apartment because I need to finish it. Well, the hash Bitcoin is there, but what I'm doing is, well, I got some hemp paper, and so the first dollar bill issued by the Federal Reserve Bank in 1914 in the United States was on hemp. So I'm kind of doing something with this kind of a money kind of concept. It actually originates from China. China were the first people to come out with paper money, and that was also produced on hemp, and that was like thousands of years ago. So we're like a little bit behind still, but
small bit.
And then it wasn't until 1918 that it was really in the United States through the Farm Bill, and now hemp is production and cultivation is allowed, and that economy is booming out there right now, I believe.
Oh, it is. I seen some post there earlier. I think it was to do with something about China going to space or soft landing of some ship anyway or something. But they were celebrating that it was Hemp China, one of these kind of companies or organizations set up to promote hemp in China, but they had a little Lego figurine kind of guy, a little hemp plastic, and he had a little Chinese flag kind of waving in support of their space program, I suppose. But it was looking at hemp, and I'm just kind of like, what are they saying there? Is there like applications of using hemp in order to maybe make spaceships? Because we've used them already to make fucking airplanes and stuff like that. There's a Canadian guy who's done that there recently. He made a plane where it was made a lot of it out of the hemp fibers as a bioplastic, I suppose. And it's that's some really cool stuff, man.
What you find with China is 50% of the world's hemp comes from there. It's native there, so it grows wild in many regions of China. And like they created flying devices again thousands of years ago. So it wouldn't surprise me if these they created the kite, so anything that literally flies using the wind and you'd imagine strings and ropes. This would all have been made from hemp. So they would have been the early adopters, and we're just the consumers, really, I suppose, coming a bit later. But some of the inventions, I think, will be very applicable now to technology, including airplanes, batteries, cars. There's so many applications there. I think it's unreal. I do have one painting that I have just next to me. I don't want to have to get up and go get the other ones, but I can. The other one on the wall is an LSD blotter artwork, and it kind of incorporates a few of the kind of ideas that I guess are kind of very relevant to people right now. And I can talk about that in a second. I also have my bicycle here, and I may or may not have taken an unknown dose of LSDs to commemorate the bicycle day that's in it. Like Hoffman took LSD, and
very nice.
I suppose an accidental dose, an unknown dose. We don't know. It might have been a bit strong. I think his dose was a bit probably high, on the high end of the scale. I definitely didn't take too much. But here is, hopefully you can see that with the light. This is the heroin piece. It's called Castello de Canela, so Cinnamon Castle.
Castello de Canela, nice.
This was just some watercolor in the background, but that's all the substance that was sold as heroin to me. So this is going to be up tomorrow on the gallery. It's the kind of proper launch tomorrow. And, it's funny because the police is actually overhead. The jail is actually part of this building. So I'm actually situated on... I make it easy for them, and we can have a great discussion about it. I'm on Avenue de Liberdade, which is Liberty Avenue, and this is where the flower revolution in the 1970s was held, where not a single bullet was shot on either side for the protesters, the freedom fighters, or the police and the representatives of the monarchy. So there was like this famous kind of references to hippies, just students, people putting flowers into the rifles of the soldiers, and the soldiers were actually ordered by the general to shoot and to fire at the crowd, and they didn't. They realized that they're the same people. And I suppose a lot of stuff happened around the 1960s and 70s, including the use of psychedelics and the understanding that maybe we're all actually just the same thing and same substance. And to kill one person is to literally kill yourself. So why would anybody want to do that, right? So there's no surprise that these kind of conversations and these movements were held. And so it's a very well-known street. It's very popular here. There's like thousands of people passing all the time. They're looking in, and I just got my vinyl up there like a couple of hours ago, Casa, Drogas.
Nice.
So people are looking, they're very interested. But I have to tell them, I'm busy now doing the interview. So tomorrow you'll have to come back. So I have the hours on the door, and I'm looking forward to talking to the public. I'll let you know how that one goes, because that's going to be where this will make a real impact. It's great to get this out to you, because otherwise, this would have just been a very quiet kind of launch here. So it's nice to get out on the airwaves, and I can share this content later as well, and just kind of get it out. But it's going to be the conversations with the locals, and I want to know, like, what's the movements, who are the groups, how do we get these people aligned, what does the average person think of? And like, it's not me who's going to be, I'm not trying to, it's not about me, it's about the message, really. And if I can try and make some connections while I'm here, that's all well and good.
Legend.
If it's taken down, and if I'm told, look, the heroin and cocaine on the wall and the hash on the wall, look, if they tell me I have to take it down, I'll have to take it down. If I have to take a criminal record for this, I'll take a criminal record for this. I'll challenge this as this is an art form. This isn't any sort of problem. It's not like an addiction. Maybe I'm just like addicted to art or something. But I wouldn't say that it's kind of equal. It's like it's more of a concept, and it's like it's to get this frustration out there, because otherwise, like I say, back home in Ireland was a kind of very, it's like it's very kind of hard to kind of get motivated and not to kind of do something that's kind of to get yourself arrested, or to like which it's a tactic.
Well, I seen a
but
comment.
If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it on my terms. If I'm going to get arrested, I'm going to do it in a way that represents me, and that's kind of what. If it happens, it happens. Look, I don't think people should back down, and I don't think the fear of arrest should be anything to get in the way of people becoming active. Because what's the harm?
No,
what's the harm of hanging a painting on the wall? Nothing. What's the harm of a piece of paper? Oh, I can't travel to the United States. There ain't nobody going to the United States for a very long time. Let's just accept it.
I think a better question to ask is what is the harm of not doing this, like of not speaking out in these different various ways in which we as activists do. Like your gallery is very much an active activism, what you're doing. So like the question really is like, what is the price that the society, if you're not doing this, like if for Europe, like not being involved in activism, It's a great price. Like it'll be a continuation of these policies for what, another 50 years, another 100,000 years. Like, you know, they might actually be successful in eradicating cannabis and psychedelics away from us as individuals, and we can only get access to them from the GW pharmaceuticals, from the whatever pharmaceutical company it is, like, you know, whereas we as individuals are stripped away, like, bit by bit of each and right, and of all the precious things that are there to enjoy in life. Like, the
Yeah.
ones they allow us, alcohol and tobacco, like, great, that's amazing, isn't it? Can kill myself slowly and boringly. Whereas with LSD, like, it's like the dangers there, it's rather low if you use the thing correctly, and it's much more enjoyable and much more expanding for you as an individual, than alcohol. You know.
Yeah.
And with that
And
being
that's
said,
kind of the
I'm
reason,
actually
like
going to
if we,
microdose there now as well. So I got some gift of a vial.
that's beautiful. So that's distilled water and LSD, right? So that's
That's the
like
one.
probably a very diluted dose. So you're microdosing now.
Yep.
Great.
One milliliters apparently is 10 micrograms.
Yeah, that would be. So you took 1 mil, so that would be just a micro. I mean, you
Yeah.
could take the other 9 mils later if you're in the mood.
Yeah, I might not have a tab under my tongue.
Yeah, me too.
It is bicycle day after all.
It's a question. Yeah, what's the harm of not doing this? And since prohibition, just researching this and trying to get this out on the pamphlet, like 1 million people have died in the United States of drug overdose since prohibition in 1971.
That's
That's
crazy.
the impact. That's the harm.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants a future, like just a future for your kids and your grandchildren, and that's kind of the point of reproducing. That's what humans do. We need to
Yeah.
leave the planet in a better, even if it's a slight change. And I do think drug reform is only one change of many. Like I say here, poverty is the problem here. It's
Hmm.
not drugs, it's poverty. That needs to be addressed too. But they're all intertwined. Issues are all intertwined. And it's kind of like making drugs illegal in 1971. It really was a response to the rise of the movement in the United States. And when you consider there that the drugs that are legal, ethanol, essentially alcohol, and tobacco, these are not really drugs that enlighten revolutions. It's more traditionally drugs like coffee. It allowed people to come out and socialize in cafes. The printing press was invented around the same time, and people would chat in the UK about bringing down the monarchy, and this would be something that they would discuss, and there would be a stimulant.
Hmm.
You could say the same thing for what has been the impact of psychedelics. We don't truly know what the full impact is because it was stopped in 1971
Yeah.
onwards. We haven't really seen what a cultural revolution with the introduction of psychedelic, like just the allowance of it, not that it's going to be introduced, but just that it's already here, but to allow it to happen in a regulated market. Because again, even if you take, it's actually really scary to think what could be on your blotter if someone's selling LSD. And that's one drug I haven't had any success getting since coming out here. Like,
Really?
it's all these drugs. But I asked for LSD. LSD?
Yeah. You'll have to
No
go to the
money there,
dark
no
web,
money
I'd
in
say.
LSD. So
Yeah. It's a very niche kind of thing, isn't it? Like, you'd want to be in a college or something like that. That's where you're probably going to get your hands on the
yeah.
LSD
If I go outside
around.
the city,
Yeah.
I know that there's better quality drugs. So don't get me wrong. Like, there's definitely good sources here, and
Yeah.
for anybody living here, it's no offense like or anything like that. But people understand that it's tourists who get ripped off around this
Yeah.
inner city center.
And they're almost okay
You
with it,
might.
aren't they? Like in a way, like, because when I was sitting in the restaurant, like, the guy came over and he was kind of on about talking. The guy in the restaurant was talking to me about the guy
Yeah,
at
maybe the
another
restaurant.
restaurant. He was like, oh, he sells bad stuff. He goes, don't buy stuff off him. And I was like, oh, you know this guy? And he was like, yes, he's around here every day. Selling, he goes, he sells bad drugs. He goes, lot of crap.
Yeah, you could say the salespeople, the hospitality, like, they're in the streets every
Hmm.
day from, early hours until late at night. And it's very much like part of that kind of environment and scene. Whereas like talking to the likes of taxi drivers, people who might live a little bit or who work a little bit, not so much in the city center, they're very, very like enraged by the whole situation that there's like gangs who are coming in, who travel here literally to do this kind of business when the times are right. Like, as I say, not during lockdown, but since the reopening. So people are timing it. They're very smart that kind of way. And you can't imagine how much money goes through the black market and the black economy that could be going into the local tax system for these police and the
if
likes
we were
of
to use
people unemployed.
if we were to use the guy right behind you, pictured behind you, Ross Ulbricht, like, and his
Yes.
platform, Silk Road, like, Ross Ulbricht, he's serving life prison now for his, I
Two
believe,
life sentences.
2 life sentences, and I believe his work was the work of an activist too. What he was doing, setting up a marketplace that empowered the consumer. More power and more protection, like that was a real, like, despite the fact that he made an enormous amount of money, I don't even think that was ever a motivation
He would
for
be
him.
the richest. He would be at least top 5 of what we know of what was confiscated. 50,000 bitcoins were
Of what
found
we
on his
know.
hard drive.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that he had more Bitcoin, but if you're to value that Bitcoin in today's time, he'd be richer than the Stripe brothers, and he'd be almost. I think he'd be. If you knew what his real balance was, he probably would be richer than Bill Gates and any entrepreneur, Steve Jobs, everybody.
Crazy.
And all he did was in the Arizona desert. He grew mushrooms, and he was a libertarian. And he came across. He obviously was involved with Bitcoin from an early time. This is like 2010, 2011, and then the website came up. I think 2011, 2012, and he thought of the idea of selling the mushrooms that he was cultivating for a decentralized currency that could be a future currency for people who sought it, who sought after it. And after several months of doing this, he brought on a friend of his from college who was the head engineer of eBay. And they know from the transcripts of they communicated on open text, unencrypted, whatever, chat messenger. He actually tells the guy from eBay that he's glad, like, quote unquote, glad that that Silk Road is no longer his problem. He sold it. Apparently, he sold it to someone. He created it, and then he sold it. And Silk Road was a marketplace for people to buy not anything. They could only buy drugs that weren't used to harm another person. So there was not allowed. I think fentanyl wasn't really around at the time, but I know recent drug markets tend to ban that. And rufinol, there's no real benefit. There's no recreational use of rufinol. So there's no real reason for someone to consume rufinol. That might be used for something much darker. So that was not allowed. And no firearms, no weapons, nothing like that. It was only substances or digital items like books, ebooks, that sort of stuff. How to, how to make, different substances, anarchy cookbook, anything that was kind of censored in certain parts of the world would be available on the Silk Road. And the evidence from researchers, including WIT, that's Waterford Institute of Technology, in collaboration with University in the Netherlands, found that this was a place where people could communicate safely, anonymously, securely, and the passing of information, like really high quality information that taught and educated people how to consume drugs, if they're going to consume drugs, what kind of interactions to do, what not to do. Like, there was one thread that sticks out in my mind. The username was someone called Harm Reduction, and he was actually one of the researchers, and it was just, kind of an ask me anything. And people would ask questions like, oh, how to use barbiturates with alcohol, or, don't do that. These little tips that people, if you see a whole catalog and people might be tempted to buy, well, then of course you have to respond to that with education. You can't just like it is here. You can't just let people freely buy stuff from an open market. There has to be a kind of a message there as well. And there was a philosophy around it. There was a whole thing, like there was a constitution and there was a kind of a memorandum of understanding that like you read this when you joined, you kind of understood how it worked to not make you scammed. And the largest benefit that they found in the research was, nobody's ever robbed or stabbed or beaten up, because it's not like street stealing where you get offered drugs and you impulsively, if someone's on alcohol or another drug, they might be more tending to buy something. In the Silk Road, you had to like spend a week or 2 weeks like trying to order it, wait for it, plan it, and then research it, and then dose it so you knew what you were doing. And like it's funny, like that the US ban they create a black market from 1971 onwards, and this market is estimated to be worth $500 billion a year currently. That's not including the counterfeit market, because as they say, it's really two markets. The counterfeit market is actually worth more. So collectively, you're talking about $1 trillion a year. And then this guy creates a marketplace for drugs, and it's in competition.
Yeah.
That's solely it. They compete. And so this guy was taken down and he was given 2 life sentences, whereas any drug marketplace or any drug dealer who was operating on the drug marketplace, including methamphetamine dealers, OxyContin dealers, the maximum sentences are kind of like 5 or 6 years, if anything. And that's to show, that's like getting someone with charges including import-export. It's not even possession or dealing, it's like import-export business. That's like that would be quite high level. And this guy just had a website that happened to let people freely make decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
He's currently serving his 8th year. So his 8th birthday was a few weeks ago. And like it's a really sad situation. And I think like the only thing we can do in response is to try and find 10 more Ross Ulbrichts. And, you know, this is going to be the next generation, like the Gen Z, looking at stuff like Artform, the internet, you know, forums like Reddit and stuff. Like, that's where they seek information from, because that's where we sought information when we were that age.
Yeah.
And we need to inspire them to be the ones to make these radical changes, like creating entirely new systems. And I think if the artists, if the activists, if the technologists unite under a single movement against the system of oppression, that is the message that we need to get across to people, and that's what we're actually doing. And I wouldn't consider myself necessarily very artistic. I mean, I did this on a laptop. I took it from a photograph of Ross, and I was kind of going for the Che Guevara kind of look. So, you know, you can tell that that's kind of, like, you know, that's what I kind of, I like that kind of political stuff, and I'd always be kind of oriented that kind of way. But I'm by no means an artist. I'm an activist, though. And if I can merge the 3 things, technology, art, and activism, then I know that that's something that I can put out to the world that's beneficial, and I don't feel so frustrated and I don't feel so defeated. And it just, yeah, I hope it does something, you know, Martin, like it hasn't launched yet, so who knows what's going to happen tomorrow.
It's got this conversation going anyway, and we've had quite a few people tuned in, and I'm sure more people will pick up on it. So certainly, like, we're getting into the minds of people out there, like opening up to the way in which we kind of think and see things, like, because I suppose some people, I don't know, they mightn't ever really see or think in this kind of a way as around these issues, especially around like the rights and what we're being robbed of in society. Like, you know, the longer term costs of these things. Like we think so short term, and we're so short sighted a lot of the time. But really, like, as I say, like if you don't do this, if I'm not doing my activism, like really, like the price we pay is it's much greater than what we pay by putting ourselves out there and speaking up. Like, you know, that was something I had to overcome myself, like, is just putting it out there, speaking up, like getting involved in activism. You know, I like yourself, like you could probably be doing 101 other things to better your own life, but you give up for what like this project is probably going to cost you money and rather than actually make you money. But it's
I can't sell the paintings because that would be dealing. So I can't sell anything. And that's not what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, you're stuck with them. You can give them away for free.
And I can't travel with them. Yeah, I can give them away for no, but that's still dealing. Then.
It is too. Yeah, shit. You can't give drugs either. Bollocks.
No, you can't do it. You can't share it. You can't distribute it. That's all counts as whether a profit is made or not. That counts as dealing. And here in Ireland and pretty much any country that has prohibition.
At least you can bring your cinnamon painting home.
I can't even travel with it because that would be importation. That would be traveling with
cinnamon.
Drugs, and like, I may have problems. So I think like if it's taken, I think what I'm going to do, and this, you know, I hope that, and I know your audience are very kind of smart because I look at the chats a lot, and I see that they're into stuff like Monero and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So like I feel that tokenizing some of the like the heroin work, the cocaine work, the LSD work, to have a digital version of it, like a certificate of ownership that shows this is this painting, And if it's raided, the physical version, the point is that they can never confiscate what we create online, and it's young people who own the internet. So we own that, and if they want to take stuff from us in the person, if they want to make housing really expensive, we can just create our own version of money, Bitcoin. We can create our own version of real estate and virtual galleries and virtual events, and now more than ever, that's where the world is on. And they're just waiting for us to give it up to them. Or just, the old people come in now and take over the internet. Nah, that's owned and ran by young people. So, we're in control of that. So nobody can confiscate a digital certificate of any of this work. So this work will exist forever. There's no one can take down that work. And that's going to be online, and everyone can see this portfolio. And again, it's not a profit-making endeavor. It's something just to spark a conversation.
Exactly.
And out of this, if it can go from a temporary exhibition to maybe something more permanent, as you say, like someone's home, or like a gallery, or like a museum, that would be great, because it could allow then people to continue the conversation and maybe get into other things, like how do you grow cannabis or coffee or chopped cacao or chamomile or coca leaf, and all these different things. Like, what actually are these plants that are all around us that we're never really taught much about, really not taught much about in school, and it could just further some people's curiosity. So that's what I'm kind of trying to seek after this 3-4 week temporary exhibition in Lisbon, is to see if there's kind of be a more permanent home for it. But if it's confiscated, goddamn, they ain't confiscating the digital version. They ain't confiscating the Bitcoin. They ain't confiscating anything that we do on the internet. So it's just going to live on, and that's the kind of long-term aim that I would expect from this. Again, I'm not selling anything here. Nothing's for. I actually have to put a sign up to say this is not for sale, just in case. When the police come, that I can just show them. Just not selling anything. It's okay. It's just a conversation. Hope they get it, and I think they will. To be honest, they're very reasonable people here.
Yeah, no, and again, as you say, like, a lot of what you have probably isn't even drugs at the moment anyway. Maybe the cocaine might have a bit, but I'd say maybe your man was willing to sniffy sugar.
Yeah, he probably would for €40. I'm sure he'd do that.
€40, I take a line of sugar. When we done it as kids, like with the sherbet. I'm sure many people have done that out there, taking a line of sherbet as a kid.
I've never done that, man.
Maybe we were a bit stupider. At least we didn't put it on the internet.
So did you get high from it? Did it actually give you a buzz?
Oh no, Jesus, it just burnt the inside of your nose. I didn't even get the full line, and we were just like a bunch of lads having a sleepover and a bit of crack, and we're like, do a line of sherbet, go on, we dare ya. All right.
I remember the idea came across my mind once for what would THC do if you grinded cannabis down, and I don't know why it came into my mind. But thankfully, the internet was there, and I just logged on to Cannabis Culture Forum, Mark Emery's forum in Canada, and someone had asked that question already, so I didn't have to look like an idiot. And the first response was what do you think you'll get? You'll get sinusitis, or you'll get some sinus problems. And I thought, oh, that sounds horrible. What am I even thinking? So the internet has just saved us so many times. It keeps bailing us out, and we just got to ask the internet if ever in doubt. But it's all these things coming together. Your online platform, what you're doing, Martin, with the podcast, this is more empowerment. This is another example of taking ownership over the media when not wanting to rely on the type of spin and editorials that they have, that they'll have you on for 20 seconds or 30 seconds to tell, what's the problem of drugs in Ireland, and what's the solution? You never get around to the solutions. You only ever get around to talking about the problems. And that does nothing for anybody, only just perpetuates frustration, fear, uncertainty, doubt, all these different feelings. And it makes people feel that the problem is so big, and it's such a, and it's only one-sided issues, because you only ever get, the health aspect. We're here to help, a certain population. I would bet that the majority of drug use in Ireland is by people who are probably young and old as well, doing drugs for recreational or medical or spiritual or whatever reason, and there is no addiction issue. But that is never picked up on the airwaves, because it doesn't align with what the government are funding that particular station, or whoever private interest owns that particular station. So, for you to go out and do this, and to have me on like this, and to have everybody, like your Albert Theo interview last week earlier this week was just fantastic. It was 3-4 days ago.
Yeah. Yeah,
Man,
no, I
that
think
was
even
something.
when I was taught in Albertillo, we mentioned just that kind of thing, even from the perspective of Spain. Like from here, us here in Ireland, we never hear about the cannabis social clubs, say in the news media.
Yeah,
But yet, when John
no,
Gilligan goes over there and he gets
yeah,
arrested, oh, all of a sudden now, oh, John Gilligan, cannabis social club media, and then the following week, then there was something in the Irish media again about like some Russian involvement and gangs and stuff in these cannabis social clubs. Like, so again, as you just kind of rightly said, like they will focus in on the bad because it supports the narrative, but they'll never really focus in on the good, which is why we've got Martin's World and 420 News, and yeah, we can bring
yeah, more power to you.
a more biased perspective from the other side, because I will acknowledge I'm definitely biased, but heavily honest as well, though.
At least you admit it,
Yeah.
Martin, at least you admit it. And I think all media should admit it, and they don't, but people need to realize and read books and authors, including Noam Chomsky.
Hmm.
Like Manufacturing Consent is just one of the best books for any young person to pick up and to understand. Every piece of media cycles through a filter, an editor, or a production team, and that production team has either has some interest, either financial, political, social, like anything. It
Yeah.
always has an interest. So when you consume information, you must always consume it with the knowledge that this person or entity may have a stake involved in what they're writing. And whether that's promoting one drug or eliminating another drug or putting down another drug or whatever it is, it's just what people need to know. So
Yeah.
I've told people, I hope people don't rely on like Irish media, because it's probably some of the worst
Yeah.
media out there. Although I know Dennis O'Brien did sell his majority share, or his entire share, I think, of his media group recently.
Fuck.
So we'll see. Will that make any difference whatsoever?
Yeah, I won't be
I don't
holding my
know.
breath.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of the Dennis O'Brien TV radio stations used to have us on. I think like Spin FM, and there was a
Mm.
few up in Dublin that were quite liberal, but then you'd wonder, oh, but the agenda is just getting clicks or it's just getting listens. So it's not really like they might behind the scenes be young people and say, oh, yeah, I completely agree with this. But,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be public because I don't want to interfere with my chances of getting employed like after this job, or like I don't want to have a record of being known that I consume drugs. But
Yeah.
in behind the scenes, they're more than welcome to talk to you, and some of them are really more than welcome to come down to your events and show. So that we were fortunate to have a good media presence, I think, over the last few years. With SSDP, with Help Not Harm. Tomorrow you got your event
I
in
do.
Cork City. Like that's going to be huge. But you are your media. Like you don't need to rely on anybody coming down. Although I hope the Evening Echo and some of the local media might, at
Hopefully.
least if you invite them, they might.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we'll definitely get the word out there to him anyway. Well, I've already gotten the word out there to him actually, since what am I saying? But
Yeah.
Graham, I'm just conscious of the time. You're an hour ahead of me over there. Yeah, you half eight
I'm
or
not actually.
no? You the same time?
They just had a disagreement with Spanish people over the time. So they have UK time here and Irish time. So we're on the same time zone. But yeah, it is kind of it's getting to the time where I need to start thinking of food and getting more paintings done for tomorrow, more drawings, and getting this place up and going.
Nice.
So look, I have to thank you again, Martin, like
No
for just
problem at all.
staying on cam for that extra bit. I know you had your show earlier, and you got your own stuff going on as well in your own life. But listen, I'll be back in Cork very soon.
Excellent.
I hope not very soon. I hope like a few weeks of this without any problems.
Hmm.
But there is flights again going through Cork Airport in May, so I hope to catch one of
Excellent.
them, get back, and we'll regroup, and I'm sure we'll do something again for June 26th. Support
Yes.
Don't Punish, like we normally do.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I'm all up for it anyway.
Nice one.
Yeah, we will have a
Nice
good old
one.
day of activity again here in Cork City. That's the job. I'm delighted to hear you're back. Actually, I was worried that you might have been away for it. So, I look forward to this.
No, I'm just here for this. It's just a project. It's just a passion project, but it's a flying visit. And,
Yeah.
my home is to Kirkig, of
Yeah.
course.
Well, if you want to post some of that artwork back at any stage, let me know and we'll receive it. We'll bring it down and host it on the streets of Cork for all to see. We'll have
Well,
to get
why
some
don't we
real
just
heroin.
create more artwork and just do a gallery, maybe in June or something like that when the weather's nice?
True that.
And maybe, or we get a space. We've been talking about that for a while now. We had the space on the bottom of Shandon Street a few years ago, but
That's right.
that's Nick Barry's office now, TD.
Mhm.
So that's a good use of the office, I would say. At least there's someone in there. But I'm sure there's many empty real estate, little offices, little spots that we can we can do something. And,
Oh yeah. I'm
yeah, we'll
thinking big
try to
anyway.
get the drugs tested as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like the boys over in Vancouver. I've been watching Dana Larson there at the moment. He's been doing some great stuff over in
Yeah,
they
man.
gave. Did you see the little packages of they're giving out heroin, 60% heroin with 40% caffeine, no cinnamon, met 100% met, no fillers, no buffers, and all of this kind of stuff they were talking about. Like just
Yeah.
straight up pure met, and they were just giving it out to people for free. Like this
See,
is some
see,
amazing work. Like
that's what those type of acts, right? Like when you think about it, and it's like, okay, you could get involved with drugs and you could make a quick buck, or you could become a Howard Marks and you could last a couple of years before you got to do a life sentence, or you could take a completely different spin on things, open an art gallery of drugs, or give drugs away through some sort of stunt or some sort of like non-profit method, like the Cannabis Social Club, and at the very worst, even when you're caught, like if you're caught, likely is probably at some point someone's going to rat you out or someone's going to catch you. You turn around and you have a story to say, I ain't like everybody you've seen before. It's not about me or my personal gain. It's about the message and it's about what I'm trying to do. And even just for Dana Larson to do that, there's going to be 10 more people replicating him. And I know that's happened with the mushroom dispensary, with the medical cannabis dispensary that he started out there like years ago. And we look at Canada now in Vancouver and we ask, oh, why is BC Bud so good? Because someone took a stand and gave it to everybody. Thank them,
Exactly.
or at least just get out and just appreciate and just do more, because there's a lot of people think that they just got to make a quick buck. Look, that's just not good enough. Like you need to think bigger. You need to think bigger, and we'll make money later. I'm sure money will come when we have a regulated system where we can employ and we can have a transparent system where we can test our products and we can sell it like we sell coffee and other substances. But until then, the risk is just too great. So better off, if you're that way inclined, do some sort of service or stunt that actually benefits the community, not just taking money from them, but in a way that will actually work with them, collaborate with artists, collaborate with a lot of different people. And like I say, artists, activists need to come together, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
I know that's what we'll do when I get back to Cork.
Yeah, I look forward to it. So,
and tomorrow, good luck tomorrow, man. I'm sorry I can't be there. Like, damn it. Like, I really am sorry I can't be there.
Man, you're doing your own protest over there, man. So fair play to you, making it global. So yeah, well done, man. Keep it up. And thanks again.
Thanks, Martin.
We'll be back with more tomorrow. So guys, so I'll leave it there with everybody.